And the New York Times is reporting under the heading Healthcare Deadlock, Senate Republicans block Democrats' effort to extend the expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies on Thursday, making it all but certain that millions of Americans who depend on them will see their costs go up. Grover Norquist, who is the president of Americans for Tax Reform, has been sounding the alarm, not about these subsidies going away, which they are scheduled to do, but about the idea of Republicans caving and making some sort of compromise that is going to cost taxpayers a great deal of money, add to the national debt, and much more. Grover Norquist joins us from Americans for Tax Reform. What happens now? Is it a certainty, as the New York Times predicts, that some 22 million Americans who depend on the Affordable Care Act and these subsidies are going to end up paying a lot more for their health care insurance?
No. What was at stake was that Obamacare was a lie. It failed to do what it said it was going to do. I say a lie rather than a failure because you knew, and the Democrats who passed it knew, that it would not accomplish the things they promised that it would. They promised you could keep your doctor. That was a lie, not a failure. You knew that would not be allowed when you read the bill. The Washington Post, back when it was completely run by the left, not their editorial page now, half of the times you think you're reading the Washington Post, I'm sorry, Wall Street Journal, and half the time you think you're reading the New York Times. So it goes back and forth. But they actually have free market stuff in the Washington Post editorial page. I don't know about you, but that is a surprise and surprises me every day when I run through. That said, in the old days, when the Washington Post wrote about it and we passed Obamacare, after it passed, they wrote, biggest lie of the year was you could keep your doctor. They didn't write about that while the bill was being discussed and debated and could be stopped. They did write it, just so you know, we are journalists. We did actually know that it was a lie, put us down as having noticed that. We didn't want to get in the way of it passing.
Okay, the fact is, hold on, Grover. The
Yeah,
fact is that we have this reality where people may have been frustrated that they weren't able to keep their doctor, but you have 22 million Americans. Do you buy that figure who are currently dependent on Obamacare?
there are millions of Americans who have Obamacare, and Obamacare's prices have been going up. That is true. The Democrats passed.
Okay, so what happens to them now? What does the Republican Party, what do conservatives offer to people who may not be able to afford these increases in the cost of their health care insurance?
Only about 7% of the people who have Obamacare would be touched at all by any change in these subsidies. We're talking about people who are not citizens. We're talking about people who are able-bodied males who could work and choose not to work 1 week a month. You don't have to work Saturdays. You have to work at least a week a month or be looking. All right. So this is not hard to do. If you refuse to work or look for work, or you're not a citizen, then you would find you will not be getting the subsidies or bailout that they wanted, that some had voted. Do remember that the Democrats took the position that these bailouts were only lasting 3 years. Then they turned around, and for political reasons, they said, we want to continue them. Why? Because whether or not the bailouts existed, your prices to somebody on Obamacare were going to go up. Even if the subsidies continued, they were going to go up because Obamacare is not working. So there are a couple of things. What is the Republican proposal instead of having Obamacare? Expanding individual health savings accounts, expanding association health accounts where associations could set up insurance, where you can buy insurance across state lines. There are a whole series of proposals the Republicans have put forward that the
Okay, but
Democrats didn't want to have as an option. Yeah.
even if those things are enacted right away,
Mhm.
speedily, if they are enacted before January 1st, there would still be hardships for a lot of people out there who are dependent right now on this system, which you would be in the process of improving, but it can't be improved or fixed overnight, can it?
No, but again, those people who will no longer get the subsidy fall into a small category. Not everybody uh, it, in Obamacare, and the smaller category basically is people who aren't citizens and able-bodied men who could go to work if they wanted to and choose not to. They're not pulling it from they're not pulling everything down on those. I think at some point we need to phase those out. But this is a very targeted withdrawal of additional subsidies because the, the subsidies were added to add additional people to Obamacare who hadn't had it more than 3 years ago because they didn't qualify for it. So they dramatically, and they said, you don't have to be working. You don't even have to be looking for working, and we're not going to ask if you're a citizen. That's the increase in the subsidies. Those are now going away. And we're going back to 3 years ago where if you qualified for Obamacare, you got the Obamacare.
And when you're talking about this category of people who are not citizens, that includes millions of people who are, in fact, legal residents of this country. It's because when you say people who are not a citizen, people think, well, that means people who are here illegally. It also includes a bunch of people who have been here for many, many years who are here legally, does it not?
Oh, I probably misspoke. These are people who are not here legally. That if you're not, th- they really carve this out from, again, 3 years ago, many years ago, the Democrats said, here's who gets Obamacare. They didn't include this additional group. It is the additional group of you don't have to be looking for work. You don't necessarily have to be here legally. Uh, that's the part that's being pulled back. So this is not something, and it's a small fraction of the total numbers because it was thrown out when they had extra money and they wanted to expand Obamacare largely in order to subsidize, unfortunately, some of the insurance companies. One of the problems you have is they went out and sold insurance to people, somehow got their signature, and the insurance company gets the money, not the person. The insurance company got the money, but there's a very high number of people who never ever talk to the insurance company again. One wonders if they knew they'd been signed up, but the money does go to the insurance company. Those are being pulled back. Of course, we're learning now about the problems in a number of places, but most recently in Minneapolis and Minnesota, where there was an effort to go from $3 million to $400 million through a certain pipelines because people figured out how to take this money and spend it other ways through Obamacare and Medicaid. Uh, we need to pull back on the fraud that does exist, but we also need to say we're not giving free insurance to people who could work and choose not to.
Right. Understood. Is that the message that you think Republicans ought to take to the midterm elections?
Two, look, Obamacare is broken and needs to be fixed, needs to be repaired, doesn't need to be subsidized instead of fixed. Two, they were granting Obamacare out to people who wouldn't work, not couldn't work, wouldn't work, and that we're not going to do anymore. And secondly, we need a series of other options rather than one post office where everybody can only buy the same product and can't make their own decisions on these things. So I think the Republicans are in a much better position. Their alternative bill is a very popular bill if you look at it issue by issue. Will the establishment left lie about it? That's how we got Obamacare. The establishment press lied about what was in it. People said, sounds good to me. Discovered that your costs didn't go down by $2,400 as they promised. It more than doubled. Obamacare was worse than what we had before in terms of the costs imposed on citizens. So we have to undo this and face up that you have to get up and say to people, You were lied to about Obamacare. You were told your premiums would go down. They more than doubled. It is more expensive than what was before.
Grover Norquist. You can read some of his material, which is linked at MichaelMedved.com. And obviously, this is a complicated issue that is a very, very long way from solution and
For
could
sure.
cause some real pain, even for people who aren't expecting it right now in this greatest nation on God's green earth.